predavanje bo pa v angleščini. René, kindly welcome to be with us today.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a pointer? Perfect, thank you. This was a quite impressive change of perspective you just realized and experienced. I also have an example about different perspectives. I live in Austria in the mountains, not so far from here, but I work in Cologne. And whenever I go from Austria to Cologne, in the first moment it feels strange. People are very busy, very open-minded, very liberal, and it takes me always 1-2 days to adapt. And then I feel quite normal. And then when I come back to the Alps, everything is very quiet and very sustainable. Everything is moving very slowly, and I also feel strange. And it takes me another 1-2 days to adapt. So this brings you always, or me at least, out of the comfort zone. And also shows that all what we discuss also in sustainability is somehow related to which kind of perspective we take. And I think this was a very also personal example how it is, whether you see, if you don't see, but at the same time you adapt to things and you feel it as normal after a while. But why do we even talk about sustainability? And probably in your country, as in my country, sustainability is becoming the overall topic. You cannot watch any television show, any political discussion, not hearing somebody using the buzzword of sustainability. Why is that? I brought you a figure. Who can pronounce this figure? It's always a test whether our bankers are with us from the banking industry, because they sometimes cannot pronounce the right name of this figure. 7 billion, very good. So you're not a banker, or you're from the banking industry. It's a quite impressive number, we can agree. So what could that be, 7 billion? How does it relate to anything of your banking account or the population in the world? So I used the number, I think 2 years ago, and now I should already put 8 billion on there. And I just have books from 2000, there was 6 billion. So you can see we are now over 7, approaching 8 billion, and within the next century we might have 10, 12 billion, and that's quite impressive. It's all within only 100 years, and you can see it on this graph. It's the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. Most of the time, how many people lived on the planet? You can see it here, east and west, together 500 million. So over the most time of the history of human mankind, we had 500 million people here on this planet. And only the last 200 years, you can see it's going up very steeply. What happened? What do you think happened in this interesting time of the 18th century? Medicine, it came a little bit later, but that was prolonging life, which is good. What else? Industrial revolution, I heard it. So that we learned to use steel, coal, and energy. But before this, we had an agricultural revolution. What happened there? We learned how to much more efficiently use our land to provide food for the society. Because all the time in history, everyone has to work the whole day just to get enough food for his and her family. But then we were using fertilizer, better land technology, and this was then one person could roughly produce food for 10, 100 people. That also meant 9 and 90 people went out of farming. And that's pretty much similar what we are experiencing right now with digitalization. A lot of people say we will lose a lot of jobs, but that happened also here. But the good thing about it, those people did different things, and they basically were then starting the Industrial Revolution. And I think this is very important, because if you talk about sustainability, some people quote philosophers, Greek philosophers or other very important people, but they never had this problem, because we could not, as mankind, change the planet. We could, of course, spoil the sea a little bit and maybe do some smoke, but we could never really change, as a human population, really destroy the planet. And now the natural scientists, already for a couple of decades, but now they come up more and more warningly, tell us that there are serious issues with our planetary boundaries. And what are the main you're all in the field of energy. What would you say, what's the most pressing challenge we have right now? Don't look, maybe you can just say it. Global warming, climate change. You can see we already above our planetary boundaries, so within the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years, this will change and this will cause severe problems. But we even have bigger problems with the nitrogen circle. That means the fertilizer we use is overusing our land and our sea. That means basically that at a certain time in history, maybe in the next 10, 20 years, we won't have enough land and food anymore. Yeah, that will be a big problem for our world population to feed them. And even more is biodiversity loss. That's the biggest problem. As you remember, when you were driving a car 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you had a lot of insects on your windshield. Now you don't have to clean your car anymore. That's the advantage. The bad thing is those insects are not here anymore. Yeah? And when I was a child, I can remember I was collecting the bugs, the May and June bugs. I'm not sure whether you had them in Slovenia. Hundreds, thousands of bugs. And suddenly they were not coming again. And I asked my parents, what's happened with the bugs? I was waiting for them. And they said, oh, that's a 4-year circle. So it only every 4 years they are coming. But did they come again? At least not in Germany. So we don't have them anymore. And this shows that this biodiversity loss becomes a major problem because, as Einstein said, if the last bee dies, humankind will have 4 years. Yeah? And we don't know exactly what this severe loss of biodiversity means to our whole food chain. Yeah? And on Bavaria, we lost the last 10 years 50% of our species. Yeah? So this is the next big thing also to talk about more, how to prevent biodiversity loss. And then, of course, you have an overall topic with not only 10 billion people, you will also have, in the next 10 years, 50 billion things, which are also connected like human people. They communicate, yeah? The door will communicate it with your wallet, with your camera, with your glass, with your computer. And this, of course, will speed up things, yeah? As the more people are interacting on a global economic level, the more innovation we have, but at the same time now we also start communicating with things. And this will, of course, lead to new business models. And this is, I think, also not realized yet how much change there will be. I just brought some examples like 3D printing. It will completely change the supply chain. Then, of course, this is maybe also an example from the energy sector. You are, rather than selling heat, you will start to sell the service of heating or make a comfortable room climate. A friend of mine, he is in this business and he changed the whole industry because the clients are not buying oil anymore. They just say, I want to have a comfortable room. And how much is a flat rate for the monthly fee to provide it? Digital platforms, yeah, so we can also as consumers more and more use digital platforms. This is an example from a small and medium-sized enterprise. Of course, it's very expensive, but when he is not using it, he will give it to the public. And through the internet, you can start producing your own things. And of course, he gets all the data. And if you produce or create something really nice, new product, then he can go to the mass market as well. Here, this is also an example, the windshield I was talking about. It's a Ford. Why do you think I brought this as a big data example? What could we do with this data I get or collect from the windshield? Weather data, yeah. So probably Ford in the United States now, with all the data they get from the from the windshields, they can better predict where it's raining and where it's not raining. And that's exactly that the former different business sectors are not valid anymore. Yeah, for automotive company suddenly becomes a weather company. Yeah, and that's also what the German companies are very afraid of, that Google or Amazon just provides the car for free to get the data. Yeah? And then, of course, you cannot compete on a price level against those new business models. And this is from students in Passau who did this. They found out that there's no good muesli, we call it, yeah, cornflakes or whatever, on the market. And so it's mainly sugar and it's not healthy. So they started a small company, and now you can get it in even every supermarket in Germany. You can mix your own muesli, yeah, your own breakfast. and they are quite successful, and this is also only possible through those new business models. And then the last thing, and then I come to the more sustainability perspective, but I think we need to have a clear understanding about this. Artificial intelligence. Yeah? I talk also a lot to the AI experts, especially in the automotive sector. Yeah? We have the discussion when will be the first autonomous car coming on our streets. And the problem with AI is, I think there are three possibilities. Either we feed AI with our algorithms, which brought us to the extinction of the planet, then it will just speed up. Yeah? Then the computers will destroy the planet just faster than we can do because they are much faster processing everything if they use the old algorithms we are using. If the computers are really smarter than us, so that means coming up with new intelligence, new algorithms, and they actually do, I can show you, because for example in the banking industry they found out that companies who are sustainable make more profit. So we as humans are still not really believing this, some of them at least, but the computer is pretty clear about this with the big data that if a company is highly performing in ESG measures, it's also more profitable, there's no contradiction. So if the computer tells us, so we rather can believe him, or it, the computer, then we can start collaborating with the artificial intelligence. Or we can still resist and say, oh, the computer, he is only a computer, so I see it differently. Then we can get into a conflict. Yeah? And then the question will be whether the computers sometime decide, oh, we could really manage the whole planet very easily. And some people already say, give the power to the computers. I know them. Yeah? I feel a little bit strange as well. But they say, just give the power to the computer and they solve everything. But then if the humans are in the way of the computers, they might decide to get rid of the humans. Yeah? And the best scenario really is to work together. So I think this will be a crucial thing, and the artificial intelligence should be really in the market and in our society by 2025 to 2030. So we have now 5 years to discuss how sustainability and digitalization work together. Yeah? If we don't get this right, this could be also a big problem. Why? Because we now have 5 to 10 years, I would say, to decide how our planet will look like in the next 50 years. Politicians, yeah, they work closely together on a global level. We have Paris, where we have the climate action. We have also SDGs, you probably know, Sustainable Development Goals. So it's much more than only about CO2 emissions. It's also about providing good health, education, zero hunger, poverty, gender equality. So we have also social and also other economic issues, which are more and more seen as relevant for sustainability. I come later and explain how the European Union will foster this. But we still have this kind of old thinking. Yeah, the old thinking mainly is, okay, I would be sustainable and I would care about social issues, but we need to make profit. Yeah? It's not somehow compatible. Yeah? So if I had enough money, I would do it, but the competitors are there, and there's kind of a trade-off thinking. And I think the first really thing we need to change is in our brain, yeah? To get this new perspective on sustainability. It's kind of a new mindset for sustainability. It's really a change of perspective. I brought here one of those nice German cars. You can see, what is this? It's a tire, and the yellow part of it, the brake. Who of you has a car? Even if you talk about sustainability, for a German it's always okay to have a car, even if it's a nice and a fast car, it's no problem. Does your car have a brake? A brake? Does your car have a brake? Is it all, no car, no brake?
My car does have a brake. Yeah.
It has a brake, okay. Why does it have a brake? To stop, okay, to stop. Okay, good answer, yeah. You never use it, so you didn't really know. Your car also has a brake? Why? To stop, okay. That's linear functional thinking. So,
I would say to control speed.
to control the speed, that's already a little bit more abstract. So it's not only to stop, but to control the speed. So, but the function, if you put your leg on the brake, it slows down. So we would all agree on this. But the first guy who built a car was a German engineer. Why did he build a car anyway? Why do you need a car for? To go from A to B and faster than to walk. So why do you build in a car you want to go faster a brake? Because from a systemic perspective, you go faster with a car with brake than without brake. Imagine your car without a brake and you need to go to Maribor or Vienna today. Would you go fast or slow without brake? Very slow, yeah. And that's why, from a systemic perspective, the question why a car has a brake, the right answer is to control the speed, goes to the right direction, but to go faster. That's also why Ferdinand Porsche always said, okay, a racing car needs to have a strong engine, but the most important thing is we need to have the best brakes, because if we have the best brakes, we can outmaneuver the others in the corner. And that's how we need to see in the future sustainability, how we need to teach sustainability, even in school. Not as a conflict, say, oh, you need to sacrifice profit, and yeah, you can be sustainable, but then you are poor. We have to say, okay, it's like the brake in a car. We need to integrate sustainability, social, environmental issues to go faster, which means to become more competitive. And this example, I take some more time because it's so important, was how we in Germany built after the war the German social market economy. We had a big political discussion, similar to what's now going on with sustainability, where they asked, should we provide social security to the people, a more socialist system, because the people were really poor, or should we have a complete open financial market like in the United States? And then Ludwig Erhard, our first chancellor, he said, we don't need this either or. We do both. We invent a social market economy where we use social security to make our companies more profitable, and at the same time, with this high profitability, we will pay the social security. And that's basically how we need to reframe sustainability and get rid of this old trade-off thinking. Yeah? And I also sometimes realize that I fall back in this discussion. We should not have this discussion anymore. It's not about trade-offs, it's really about finding the sustainability sweet spot. And there's an Austrian economist, he is called Schmidpeter. He is not mainstream, but more and more people start now reading him, because what he was saying is, what is actually the role of a business in society? It is to bring together the interest of the entrepreneur, which is to make a profit, to develop an idea, with the interest of society. And only if he gets this right, if he integrates societal, sustainable thinking to the interest of the organization, you come up with new processes, markets, products, business models, and management systems. So he was explaining innovation through combining the interests of stakeholders and society. And he was basically the creator of innovation theory in management. At this time, he was not so much aware about sustainability, but it's another example that we have everything, unfortunately not in the mainstream economics. Yeah? He was a little bit kind of an outsider because he was taking all the best ideas from everywhere and putting it together to our own theory, which is not so well received in academia. You should stick to only one theory, but he was trying to combine it. And this leads us that sustainability becomes now the biggest driver for innovation, at least from the perspective of Schmidpeter. And at the same time, in order to be innovative, you need to have the brake, because if you innovate now to the wrong direction, as I showed you with artificial intelligence, this might cause big social and environmental problems. And 5 years ago, I went to a lot of technological congresses, and nobody was talking about sustainability. Everyone saying, oh, technology will solve all the problems. And now they change all their minds. They say, of course, technology will change a lot and will help us to implement sustainability, but we also need to have an ethics, a kind of a sustainable mind in order to decide which kind of technologies we develop. And I try to make it simple to say, okay, there are not responsible, but technical not possible technologies like cloning. This we should monitor. Yeah? It's not possible, but it would be also not responsible, at least from our ethical perspective right now. Then there are things which are not responsible but technically possible, nuclear bombs. There we need political solutions, yeah, and we developed political solutions. Unfortunately, those political solutions we developed 50 years ago are now falling apart because some countries decide to get out of those contracts. Then we have ideas which are responsible and already technically possible, like electric cars. Yeah? They seem to be more energy efficient, and of course there are still some challenges, but it's technically possible to have electric cars. Maybe it's not electric cars, it might be hydrogen cars. We will discuss. That's a technical discussion, but at least society would like to have a different alternative solution for mobility. It will be technically possible and it's responsible. But we still have a lot of things which are responsible, technically not possible, like water, clean water. Yeah? For in India, we still are not able to produce enough clean water for the Indians. There we would have to have much better technology to clarify water and so on. And this is actually where companies can do a lot. They can scale the new models, but which is even more, I think, interesting is to find new solutions to the SDGs. And that's how you can bridge the political idea of SDGs with a more micro perspective of companies. And this is also now very much fostered by politicians, at least those politicians I'm talking to. I say, okay, on the one side, it's good that the politicians have agreed on something and tell us what is good to do. That's basically the ethical sustainability framework. But at the same time, they cannot do without business entrepreneurs who actually generate the innovation. Yeah? And you can see that the map all over the world, we will get more and more regulation. And this brings me now to a very important thing which just happened last year. The new financial regulations which will come now from the European Union. You can see 2018, most of the laws were not related to investors. It was mainly related to industry. We were telling the industry how much CO2 you are allowed to emit, how much environmental protection you need to have, and so on. And within 1 year, this changed. From now on, we have 80% of all the environmental legislation not covering the industries anymore, but the investors. Why? Because they learned, the banks learned, and this is an example from UBS, they learned that the biggest leverage we have as politicians is to tell the investors how to invest the money. And this will, of course, affect directly the industry and the companies. And you can see they now started a non-financial reporting directive where investors have to declare the money they invest, how it affects the climate. They are right now also on a taxonomy, so there will be a tax on CO2, and this will, of course, change all the capital flows, and that will be the idea now, to directly intervene in the capital flows of the European Union, and not only stop at the borders, but also through the tariff system, if China and others send or export-import products to Europe, have to apply to the same laws and pay taxes, tariffs, and so on. This is the biggest example now how the European Union will try to become the most sustainable economy in the world. Yeah? And we still believe that we are a big company, a big market, and we still have the power to enforce this. Yeah? And if you have heard von der Leyen, she was mainly addressing those issues. It was just a little bit postponed because it took a little longer to get the new European Commissioner. So it should have been already happened this year, so it will happen the next 2, 3, 4 months. And there's a strong political discussion now. Germany and France is still arguing whether nuclear power is sustainable or not. That's, I think, the big issue. They will find a solution for this. And then the investors and the banks have to completely change how they invest their money. So this is the political pressure, and it just came about last year. So all the bankers tell me we were a little bit surprised. Yeah? We didn't think that it's going so fast. Yeah? So we were behind, but now we put all our energy to get this right. But before this even, and that's what I was telling you, Harvard Business School did a study, and they said, okay, there are 4 different kinds of companies. One of which is a kind of a coal electricity plant. And if you put, as an investor, your money into those kind of business models, which don't obviously care about sustainability or any environmental issues, you get 3% less as the risk would be necessary to pay you. Yeah? So basically the alpha is a risk-adjusted return. So your return as an investor is 3% too little compared to the risk you take. And that's why now the big German insurance companies like Allianz, Münchner Rück are getting out of those kind of investment in coal and oil. I don't know. I'm not sure whether they want to save the world, but they realize as an investor, why should I get to those dirty industries if I don't cover my risk? Yeah? Then 80% of the companies are like this. Basically also a lot of your companies, and that's quite normal. Okay, we are having our usual business model, we have our value chain, and we green us a little bit. Yeah, to have a CSR report, have maybe some solar panels on it, maybe some fair trade coffee, whatever, make a nice report and say, okay, we are green. If you see those companies, you see that as an investor, you make average return, which is normal because 80% of the companies are like this. So if I give my money to the market, I get the alpha, the risk-adjusted return, a little bit higher because I don't invest here, so it's a little bit higher than investing in all four. Now it's getting interesting. Then there's those kind of greenish companies, mostly startups, young people who really say, we are going to save the world, they come with a bicycle, try to make everything sustainable. Sometimes it feels strange to go there because I'm not like this maybe, yeah, so I thought maybe I'm not the right customer for them, but if you talk to them and they tell you, yeah, we have really here good ideas to save the planet, how to produce CO2 neutral and have no child labor and so on. And then you ask him, are you making money? And they say, oh, we don't do it for the money, we want to have an alternative economy. But you find out they make good money. Yeah? And also the studies show, compared to the risks they take, they have 2% annual more return than an other business. Yeah? So my question always is, whether you started now a bakery in Ljubljana, would that be an alternative biological one or a regular one? Or just you would start a green bakery. Even if you don't want to save the world, because it's less risk you take, because you have a better business model, and you get, of course, a higher return compared to the risk you take. And then the interesting thing now is that they also looked at companies who are not greenish. So they might not have fair trade coffee. Maybe the board of directors still drive big cars, which might be not so sustainable. But what they try is to change their business model. Yeah? Try to get out of certain materials, try to make it more eco-efficient, try to also develop new products that help the customers to become more sustainable. So really focus in business terms of sustainability, even if they drink at home still standard coffee or red wine or whatever. So not ideological, but really to take a business opportunity out of sustainability. And you can see that 5 to 10% of the companies are like this, even big German DAX companies, and they make 6% more return compared to the risk you take as an investor. And that's, of course, very, very interesting. So even without any political regulation, the investors are looking for those kind of companies, those. So they will try to avoid those companies. Okay, they are average, but they, of course, try to move in the startup scene more to this. But actually, most interesting are the regular companies are really transforming their core business models. And the German car industry is now exactly there, how to get from here to here. Yeah? They had all nice sustainability and solar panels on the roofs and everything, but in their core, they are not producing sustainable cars. Now they have to do it, so they have to come from here to here, the sustainable business transformation. So why, and the investors are reacting. So I think Union Investment, a big financial company, they want to get 100% of their investment in those two categories. Most of them are up to 15%, 10 to 15% of the money now goes to those kind of companies. Why not more? Because I, as an investor, would give all my money here. Why not more? No, that's a risk adjusted. I make, compared to the risk, more money. Because there's not enough investment opportunities. So we don't have a demand problem. Companies always say, oh, the customer doesn't want to buy our sustainable products. That's not true. We have a supply problem. Yeah? We have not enough entrepreneurs, companies who are willing to transfer their business model and really become sustainable in the core. Some don't know how to do it. Some do it because they still have the trade-off thinking. There's many reasons for this. But for Europe, it will be the only opportunity, challenge we have. Because we lost social media, we lost nanotechnology, biotechnology. In the last big global market of the future, which will be so still available, unchallenged, I would say, but it's more and more challenged now by the Asians. They come now and see it. If I give the same presentation in China, they say, oh, this is exactly what we want to do. Yeah, please tell us more. Is the green tech, yeah, and the sustainable economic thinking. And we in Europe really could go this. So I think this is very much approved. I can show you hundreds of other studies, yeah, from Oxford, Cambridge. 80% of all studies show that there's a positive influence of sustainability to the profit. 90% of all studies show that there's a correlation, and they also not only show there's a correlation, but also how this impact works. Yeah? So if I give good money to my employees, they are friendlier to the customer. This means the customer is more satisfied. This means the customer buys more. There's all the proof we have. And this brings us to the conclusion. Yeah? And that's what I'm working on now for 6 years. We need to integrate sustainability into regular business management education. Yeah? So we don't need sustainability management anymore. Doesn't make sense to manage sustainability. What we need is sustainable management. So everything we do from HR, controlling, marketing, finance, reporting, stakeholder, brand management, leadership needs to be done in an integrated, systemic way where we see sustainability not as a break, but as the way how to move faster. Yeah? And this also leads to a different thinking with Porter. This is Michael Porter. So Michael Porter was saying, okay, the best way for a company to get to a unique selling proposition is through diversity or diverting yourself in product, marketing, and sales. But this becomes more and more difficult because production will be done by robots, computers, marketing will be done by marketing algorithms. You think about Alibaba, Amazon, and so on. So it's very difficult to be different. And Porter always said leadership, compliance, product development, and controlling are only secondary functions of a company. So that's something everyone does the same way. And this will change. So I think production, marketing, sales will become kind of doing everyone the same way. But how you can differentiate your company is your leadership style, how you do your controlling system, how you control your company, how you focus in your research and development, how you develop your personnel, yeah, your human resources. And this is changing the whole idea. Yeah? And that's what I'm also doing now with companies in Germany. We are getting away from the financial controlling system towards a sustainable controlling system, yeah? Without euro and dollars. So we define what does sustainability mean from inside out, not told by anyone else. What for you as top managers does sustainability mean? And then we put it into one sustainability figure. It's an algorithm. And according to this algorithm, the CEO and the directors of board are steering their company to the future. And what we found out that this one control figure, number, key performance indicator, runs in front of profit, which is very good for the directors because they say, okay, if we focus on sustainable management, the profit comes afterwards automatically. Yeah? And of course, sustainability is not only about avoiding negative impact. Yeah, there's this example with a carpet. So this carpet has maybe some poison in it, so a little bit of chemistry. Let's reduce the chemistry by 50%. 50% less poison in that carpet. Would you buy it as a customer? No, it doesn't make sense. So I don't want to have a carpet which is poisoned at all. I want to have a carpet which is cleaning the air. And 5 years ago, I was giving a similar speech at the German car industry, and I was saying, why do you always think about reducing the poison or in the emissions of your car? Why do you not start thinking about building a car which is cleaning the air? And everyone was laughing at this time, yeah, because he said, that is crazy. And what happened? In Korea, a brand starts now to think this direction, and they will come up with cars who are cleaning the air. That would be the solution, yeah, because if you go through the city, you take the air, and the air which, of course, you have some air pollution from the car, but it's less than the filter you build into your car, so the air which comes out at the back is cleaner than the air you get in the front. And also, you probably remember from the real estate, in China they are now starting building skyscrapers this way, where they clean the air which is surrounding. So they think in a positive way of sustainability, not in a negative anywhere. And we always think about avoiding, reducing, sacrificing, and of course this is not the way how we should talk about sustainability, yeah? Because how can you sell something which is hurting? And that's basically the last slide, and then we get to the discussion, I think. The difference between sustainable management and traditional management. Traditional management mainly focus on efficiency. So you have a certain output, of course you will increase your output, more cars, more turnover, more profit, and at the same time decrease your input, less costs. And if you say 5% more output, 3% less input makes 2% more profit or return on investment next year. It's very much about efficiency, and that's where we are very good. It's also in Germany, and I think also Slovenia, we are very good in thinking how to do things efficiently. And this is good if there's no transformation process, because we just do the things which work in a better way. But if we really are now getting into a transformation of our societies, it's not about efficiency anymore, it's more about effectiveness. Yeah? So we have to think about what is my impact as a company to the society, why I even exist. Yeah? Now the CEOs, even in the United States, 181 said, the company, the most important thing is its purpose. Why does the company exist? Why does anyone need your company? And then you say, okay, as a car manufacturer, I exist because I want to provide mobility in a way which is inclusive, so everyone can afford it, but also CO2 neutral and maybe autonomous. That's basically the impact I want to make to society so that we really have a sustainable mobility system in our society. For this, of course, we need a different outcome. We need new systems. We need car sharing, for example, yeah? And because I saw some people nodding with electric cars, I don't think it's a solution. It doesn't make sense to just now get rid of 10 million diesel cars and build 10 million new electric cars, because we don't have the resources. What we really should do is to use the infrastructure in the cars we have, and for example, start thinking about e-fuels, yeah, so that we can generate CO2 neutral fuel and put it in the cars which are already existing, and that's use them CO2 neutral. Or to share it. Yeah? If you share the cars, you need only 1/10 of the number. So we would have enough cars for everyone if we just would share it or not take it as our personal possession. So there's a lot of things where we need to change our mobility systems, but this of course leads to a completely different output. Yeah? That's where I'm, as a car manufacturer, and BMW did it at a certain extent to say, okay, why instead, or additional to producing cars, building a car-sharing platform. And maybe in the future we can earn our money by providing a digital platform for car sharing rather than building cars. Yeah? And those ideas you only get if you really think from the impact and from your purpose. And then, of course, the last step is, as in traditional management, to make it as efficient as possible. But efficiency without effectiveness is useless. It just means to do the wrong things very right, which makes this even worse. Yeah? So sometimes it's then better not to be efficient if you do the wrong things. What we really need to do is the right things, and also in a right and efficient way. And we have the slogan, thinking the present from the future. So stop thinking how to prolong the past, but really think how should the future look like. There the SDGs and everything what we discussed are having a good vision, a good picture, but what does it now mean for you as a company? What is the impact you will make for making this future happen? And then discuss what kind of outcome, and therefore we need networks. Yeah, you need to join alliances like this. This is a really good alliance to discuss the outcome. And then, of course, every company on her or his own needs to discuss what kind of output they want to provide for the future to make this change happen. And yeah, so there's a lot of change as seen, but I think really, and that's why I also think we had this first speaker, very good, it starts with a new mindset, yeah, because with the old mindset you cannot get this. And I talked to a lot of top managers, they seem to understand it, and they also say, okay, this is how we should provide the future, and we should go ahead. The problem is now all the middle managers, yeah, because they, of course, say, 30 years of my life I was quite successful in becoming more and more efficient. Why should I now do everything differently? Why should I change my systems, my controlling systems, and so on? So there is also a big now need for education, I would say, yeah? To really educate people, to help them to take the fear and say, it's not completely destroying our system, so don't be afraid of this. It's just to giving it a new direction. Yeah? And the direction, of course, we need to agree also as a society. And therefore, the social discussion now, or political discussion on sustainability is becoming key. And I'm a little bit concerned because more and more people now are taking opposite positions. Yeah? I'm not sure whether you have Friday for Future who said, okay, sustainability is most important and forget about profitability. And the others now say, and they just started now in Germany, the anti-Friday for Future section who says, no, sustainability, forget about sustainability, it's all about making profit and get a good job. And this is this old trade-off thinking. So if we get this trade-off thinking now to our society, we will get a political divided society. And I think this is the last bridge we have to really discuss sustainability from a business perspective and show that profitability and sustainability goes together. And fortunately, there are some politicians being in this way and now very much moving towards this and also implementing European regulation. And Slovenia could become, hopefully, if you have this discussion, a leading country to show it as an example that it works. Thank you very much.